The studio was buzzing with its usual energy that night, cameras rolling and an audience primed for laughter, but the air shifted the moment Donald Trump sat across from Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. What was supposed to be a promotional appearance quickly turned into a verbal sparring match, as Stewart, known for his sharp wit and relentless questioning, pressed Trump on controversial statements and business practices that had been making headlines. At first, Trump tried to deflect with bravado and humor, but Stewart refused to let him off the hook, drilling deeper with every sarcastic jab and pointed observation. The audience laughed and clapped at Stewart's quips, but Trump's smile grew thinner, his eyes hardening as if he realized the stage was no longer his. Tension mounted with each exchange until the room felt more like a boxing ring than a talk show set, and finally, in a stunning display of frustration, Trump pushed back his chair, muttered something under his breath, and stormed off the stage. Gasps filled the studio, followed by a stunned silence, and then an eruption of applause and shocked laughter, as Stewart turned to the crowd with his trademark smirk and delivered a one-liner that would be replayed endlessly in the days to come. That walk-off, captured live on national television, instantly became one of the most infamous moments in late-night history. As soon as Trump disappeared behind the curtains, the control room scrambled, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the cameras linger on Stewart's reaction. The host, never one to waste a dramatic moment, leaned back in his chair, raised his eyebrows, and quipped about finally having proof that some people really can't handle the heat. The audience roared with laughter, half in disbelief and half in exhilaration, knowing they had just witnessed television history unfold in real time. Behind the scenes, however, the atmosphere was anything but light. Producers whispered frantically, staff rushed to ensure Trump's exit was smooth, and security tightened around the stage as if expecting the businessman to return with a vengeance. Social media, which never missed a beat, lit up instantly. Hashtags about Trump storming off The Daily Show began trending within minutes, clips went viral, and commentators from every corner of the political spectrum weighed in. For some, the walk-off was a display of weakness, for others, it was a bold refusal to play along with Stewart's biting comedy. Either way, one thing was undeniable: Trump's fiery departure had taken what should have been a routine interview and transformed it into a cultural flashpoint that people would be talking about for years. What made the clash so explosive was the way both men leaned fully into their personas. Stewart as the sharp, unrelenting satirist, and Trump as the defiant, larger-than-life mogul who refused to be cornered. Stewart pressed him about past bankruptcies, questionable business partnerships, and inflammatory remarks that had dominated headlines, weaving each point into humor that drew roars from the audience. But the laughter only seemed to fuel Trump's irritation, his responses growing sharper, his voice louder, his gestures more animated. The tension escalated with every exchange, as Trump repeatedly accused Stewart of twisting his words and being part of a media machine, out to get him. Stewart, calm but ruthless, kept pushing back with well-timed barbs and facts, delivering his rebuttals with a grin that only deepened Trump's scowl. The atmosphere was electric, as if the audience was watching a prizefight play out live, and by the time Trump finally reached his breaking point and walked off set, the confrontation had cemented itself as one of the most unforgettable late-night moments ever. Televised. By the fourth surge of tension, the studio had transformed into a pressure cooker, every word and gesture magnified under the glare of live television cameras. Donald Trump, face flushed and voice sharp, leaned forward repeatedly, trying to wrest control of the narrative from Jon Stewart, who sat back with a controlled, sardonic grin that only heightened Trump's frustration. Stewart's relentless questioning, laced with humor but underpinned by hard-hitting truths, targeted Trump's history of controversial statements, business practices, and public blunders, forcing the mogul into a corner where charm and deflection no longer sufficed. The audience, sensing the escalation, leaned forward in their seats, some laughing nervously, others holding their breath as the tension thickened like fog. Trump's responses became increasingly defensive, punctuated by hand gestures and pointed accusations that Stewart was intentionally humiliating him. Cameras captured every flicker of emotion, the tight jaw, the narrowing eyes, the subtle tremor in his voice, which only amplified the drama for viewers at home. The other staff and co-hosts moved cautiously, aware that any misstep could further ignite the situation, while the audience waited in suspended disbelief, knowing that the showdown was building toward an inevitable climax. The dramatic walk-off that would be replayed endlessly across news outlets, social media, and talk show retrospectives. By the fifth peak of the confrontation, the energy in the studio had reached an almost unbearable intensity, a mix of anticipation, disbelief, and sheer spectacle that left everyone, audience, crew, and hosts alike, on edge. Donald Trump, now visibly agitated, leaned forward aggressively, pointing fingers and snapping back at Stewart with a mix of indignation and exasperation, attempting to reclaim dominance in a battle he had clearly underestimated. Stewart, unflinching, maintained his composure, delivering each barb with surgical precision, his calm demeanor amplifying Trump's growing frustration. Laughter erupted from parts of the audience, while others gasped at the raw tension, caught between amusement and shock at the escalation of the verbal duel. Trump's face flushed red, his gestures grew more erratic, and his voice boomed with the kind of authority that demanded attention yet betrayed an underlying vulnerability as he struggled to maintain control over the narrative. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every bead of sweat, every flicker of a clenched jaw, every sharp glance, immortalizing a moment that would soon dominate news cycles and social media feeds. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled to regain order, frantically signaling for cutaways or commercial breaks, but the unfolding drama had surpassed their ability to contain it. In that charged atmosphere, it became clear that the exchange had transcended the realm of a typical talk show interview. This was a cultural moment, a live collision of personalities whose impact would echo long after the cameras stopped rolling. By the sixth escalation, the studio had transformed into a stage for an almost cinematic showdown, the tension so palpable it seemed to reverberate through every seat, every microphone, and every camera lens. Donald Trump, now fully unrestrained, leaned across the desk, his voice booming with indignation and frustration as he accused Jon Stewart of personal attacks, media bias, and intentional provocation. His gestures were sharp and emphatic, slamming the table and jabbing fingers, each movement punctuating his escalating fury. Stewart, in contrast, remained a picture of composed confidence, his dry wit and piercing questions landing like precise strikes, each one exposing cracks in Trump's deflective armor. The audience, sensing the historic nature of the confrontation, oscillated between laughter, gasps, and stunned silence, their reactions feeding into the intensity of the live moment. Cameras captured every detail, the narrowing of Trump's eyes, the set of his jaw, the controlled yet unmistakable fire in Stewart's gaze, all of it amplifying the drama unfolding before millions of viewers at home. Off-camera, producers and staff scrambled desperately, debating whether to cut to commercial or let the exchange continue, aware that any interference might only heighten the spectacle. In that moment, it was clear that this was no ordinary interview. This was a raw, unfiltered collision of egos, wit, and power, a live television event that would dominate headlines, social media, and public discourse for weeks to come. By the seventh eruption, the tension had reached its breaking point, and the live audience could feel the electric charge of confrontation crackling in the air like static before a storm. Donald Trump, flushed with anger and frustration, slammed his hand against the desk, his voice booming louder than ever as he accused Jon Stewart of orchestrating an ambush rather than conducting an interview. Each word was loaded, sharp, and defensive, a mix of indignation and ego that threatened to consume the studio entirely. Stewart, ever the master of timing and verbal precision, leaned back slightly, his calm demeanor in stark contrast to Trump's volatility, letting the mogul's fury hang in the air for maximum effect before delivering another perfectly timed, cutting remark that drew gasps and laughter in equal measure. The audience sat on the edge of their seats, unsure whether to cheer, gasp, or remain silent, caught in the raw spectacle of two powerful personalities colliding live on television. Behind the cameras, producers frantically gestured, while stagehands and crew whispered urgently, aware that the unfolding drama could spiral further at any moment. As Trump finally pushed back his chair and stormed toward the exit, muttering under his breath, the room erupted in stunned applause and nervous laughter, a chaotic mix of awe and disbelief. In that moment, what had started as a promotional appearance became a historic television event, an unscripted, unforgettable clash of ego, wit, and raw human emotion that would be replayed and dissected for years to come.